Welcome to the Sharp Way Show. So happy to have you with me this evening. It's a little bit past 7 p.m. on the East Coast. And yes, I'm here. And I know it looks like the sky isn't so dark, but it is here in New York. New York, there is a dark cloud across New York. You damn Canadians, you have sent your smoke over across New York. And now all of a sudden we have a dark cloud over New York. But I am the brightness that is going to break through all that darkness here in New York. I'm so happy you're giving me a chunk of your evening. I have with me this evening a very special guest, someone who is going through the pain that many of us have gone through as an independent candidate, but is really taking a huge leap. A man out of Chicago who is trying to make the leap into run for president as an independent candidate. The man himself, the independent candidate for president, Andre Nero. How are you, sir?
Hey, Larry, how are you? I'm amazing. Thank you so much for the invite.
Absolutely. I'm glad to have you here. I think a lot of my audience is going to be curious to what you're thinking about, what you're doing. And for those of you who want to see what he's doing and what's going on with Andre, you can. It's actually grossly simple. You want to head over to Nero. Let me grab it right here if I can. Nero4America.com. Check him out over there. See what he's doing. He talks about himself. He talks about what he wants to achieve. All his policies are all there. Check it out if you want to see what he's doing. But let me ask you, guy like you, got some success, came from some tough spots and pulled yourself out to make some stuff happen. You've got a lot of options in your life right now. Why do this? Why run for office when, as an independent on top of it, not even as a Republican or Democrat, but as independent, knowing that the odds are against you, that this is really going to be tough to even, get in the ballot, get elected, really hard, really tough. Why?
Well, that's an excellent question, and I'll give you an answer as simple as possible. I have grown extremely tired of sitting on my hands. At the end of the day, the country does not need politicians. They need leadership. Yes. They need someone who understands the American landscape, not just the political landscape. And I think the American community has grown exceptionally tired in regards to voting for both Democrat and Republican, because in my honest opinion, I feel like is both sides of the same coin, yep. Two sides of the same coin. One party is destroying the very fabric of democracy, while the other party is simply allowing them to do it, which, again, I'm not a politician per se, and I haven't seen it on that level, but I do understand it from a very, I guess you say, an aerial view. So at the end of the day, I chose to become independent because the only way, in my honest opinion, personally and professionally, that I can serve the best interests of the public or the community is to be independent. It doesn't mean that I can't take ideals that are not beneficial for the American public, but you can't buy me, you can't sway me. You can't manipulate me at the end of the day. I've been through everything. So I say all the time, you cannot break someone who's already been destroyed. And that being said.
So let me walk down that road if I could, because your story is one of, you shouldn't be here right now. That's your story right now. You shouldn't be here. A lot of people who had to get knocked down the way you had to get knocked down, they don't get back up. And you did. And you wrote a book. If I remember the name, it Changed at the Altar. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. And in that book, you talk about the idea that, your life was going to go in a certain way, and you thought, and it didn't. And if I remember the story right, and tell me if I'm wrong here, you were with a young lady for 6 years, for a long time in your life as teenagers, and in an environment that was difficult in Chicago, but you were able to stay with this young lady for many years. And then she broke your heart, basically, and publicly. Am I right?
Yes.
Tell me the story.
Yes. I was with a young lady for 6 years in the city of Chicago. We were like thing one and thing two. If you saw one, you saw the other. There was no question of who she was to me and who I was to her. And the day that I prepared to marry her at the altar, which was at 7 p.m. that night, she never showed. I literally, at
Wow.
19 years old, held everybody hostage, made everybody sing to about midnight, and then they had to convince me to let it go.
Wow.
Only to find out that she married another guy the same day by noon, and he was a pastor. So yeah, that literally shattered what I call the heart at that moment.
So at that point, most people would have been really angry and probably would have been self-destructive, right?
Hmm. Absolutely.
But I feel like part of you allows work to kind of deal with your anguish. When you have anger or anguish or problems, you tend to shift that into work. Is that right?
Eventually. Again, I'm human like anyone else, but at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day, I believe it's mindset that makes the difference. Uh,
Mm.
in everything in life, there is negatives and positives, but I do believe that if you uh, convert those negatives to positives, because I think we all can admit that life will happen. It's how
Yep.
we absorb how life happens that makes a substantial difference as to how we move forward in our lives or not. Because we can either use that bitterness or anger to keep us stagnant and stand completely still right where we are, or we can turn that into fuel to catapult us to the next dimension of our lives.
Got you. Joe's your fan. Joe says that's a movie plot. Damn. Well, maybe it is. I like it. Okay, Joe, write him the screenplay. Write him the screenplay. Get it to him. He's got a contact online. Get the screenplay going.
Let's make it
So
happen.
I love
Netflix,
it.
Netflix.
But the problem that I think most of us would see, and I'm sure you did too, is as you start working, the environment you were in, your environment wasn't made for you to do well. There was just so much negativity in the areas that people grow up in. Yours too. I know there wasn't initially when you were younger, there wasn't a father figure in your life. Your mom was really the center of your world in that regard. So
Absolutely.
tell me what got you to the point where you found yourself arrested.
Well, during this whole debacle, again, you got 6 years, and most people that have spent a substantial amount of time with any individual, there's a bond there.
Yep.
And, you, in so many words, without the actual marriage itself, you kind of become one if you're spending practically every day of your lives, especially during your adolescent
Sure.
time with an individual. You become well bonded, almost kind of like gorilla glue,
Mm-hmm.
emotionally or spiritually or mentally. And after some time discovering that, the love of my life, who I thought was my soulmate, married a 25-year-old pastor and spending 6 years, and she was pregnant at the time. So she was about a month pregnant carrying my child. And, we
Oh,
bring virginity to each other, the whole 9 yards. So it was a lot of connectivity there. And, that's a lot for a teenager,
yes.
trying to break into adulthood. So discovering that, a guy that basically stood in your face and talked about how anointed your children was going to be. And I don't have any kids, by the way, and, try to speak into your life and tell you who you're going to be and who your kids are going to be and who your wife is going to be, just turn around to be the same person to marry your fiance on the
Mm.
same day that you were preparing to marry her that night. So it just lets you know the state of other individuals. That's where some people just simply don't have a conscience, and that's okay
Yes.
too. I'm not held accountable for what other people do. I am held accountable for my own actions. And at
Right.
that moment in time, I allowed my bitterness and my anger and my hurt to get the best of me, which caused me to have I kind of turned into like the evil Dragon Ball Z, because I developed
Mm.
a superpower that I didn't even know I had. When you have adrenaline, no sleep, bitterness, and anger all running at the same time or running concurrently, you become a whole different person that you don't necessarily
Yes.
recognize. And not having that happen at any time in your life, and then all of a sudden you have this drastic event to turn your life upside down. Most people would not know what to do with it. Matter of fact,
Mm.
if anyone was in my shoes other than me, they probably would have either committed homicide or suicide. And I was well on my
Or
way.
both.
Yeah, I was well on my way for both. Um, but I like to say I had a divine intervention, even though I did go to prison as a result, of course, having a portion of that story, and spent 2 years of my physical life, behind bars. I had enough time to really evaluate my life and the direction that I wanted to travel.
But I want to go back, if I could, before you go there. What I want to talk about here is when you were making some decisions. I feel like the decision you made to break into someone's home, to break into someone's business, you were doing it because you believed at the time it was actually fair. You believed it was righteous. You thought you were righting a wrong. Did I get that wrong?
Yeah, and like I said, one of the biggest messages for me in moving forward with this campaign, I'm always going to be transparent, come hell and high water. It may not necessarily have the greatest presentation, but it's the truth at the end of the day. Some people love it. Some people might not love it. But at the very least, they can say that I have been transparent from A to Z. And I think that's what makes things better as this campaign.
But Andre, the reason why I'm saying this, and I want to be very clear why I'm saying this. I'm saying this because I know people who rob because they enjoy robbing. I've had some of them on my show before who've admitted it. They love the lifestyle. They thought it was sexy and fun and it was cool. They don't regret that. They don't think that anymore because they did time in jail. But at the time, they thought it was sexy and fun and cool. And I know people who robbed because they were desperate for their fix, desperate for their next, whatever. I know people have done that too. And I think if someone hears that you were arrested for that, they're going to assume one of those two things.
Automatically. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. And I don't think that was true in your case, is what I'm saying. I feel like you weren't thinking, I enjoy the lifestyle, I'm going to become a thug. I don't think you were saying that. And I don't think you were looking for your next hit. I think you believe the person that you were trespassing on had trespassed on you first. Is that true?
Absolutely. And how that happened. So I managed McDonald's. I've actually had a lot of jobs. I've actually been working since I was 6 years old, delivering newspapers. Got my first management job at 10 years old, managing adults. And how this story unfolded is, of course, after the unsuccessful, marriage, and discovering that, my ex-fiance married another guy the same day, which happened to be a pastor. She ended up coming back with me a week later. And upon discovering that she came back with me, I didn't know that she had a joint account with her mom. So for years, we were together for years, and I was giving her a percentage of my checks every pay period. That accumulated over $10,000 by the time we were supposed to get married. This was a way of me letting her know that we were going to be okay, at least financially, to make sure that we had a pretty decent start in life. And when she did come back with me, I had to go down to the boroughs of Chicago. I'm talking about the most crime-ridden, infested area of Chicago to go get my fiance. And after doing that, it took me like almost 6 hours to retrieve her, because we had to do it in such a very intense and slick way. And when I finally got her, it was probably about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So we were exceptionally tired. And my mom no longer wanted to deal with the situation and said, Andre, don't bring that here. Rightfully so. Any parent, if you see a situation that your son or your daughter is going through, you're like, hey, you know what? I've had enough. And that was the situation. So the goal was, the intent is to, wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning and to pull out the funds so we can start our own bank account. And so we can put a down payment on a place for us to stay. We overslept. And so we ended up waking up around noon, I believe that day, noon or close to 1. And she went in again, blow after blow after blow. She came back out crying. And I'm trying to understand why she's crying. And she tells me, the money is gone. I'm not understanding why the money is gone. And she told me that her mom extracted the funds and she ended up buying the pastor, put a down payment on a Cadillac and bought him some suits for his anniversary, which we were all members of the same church. And now we had $0. So now we have, all of the, I guess you say the church.
This is sound like Joe's movie is getting written by itself right now.
Yeah, basically. And so we got all of these different things against us. So it's us against the world at this point.
Right.
And again, as the bitterness is growing, the anger is growing. I'm not getting any sleep, not getting any rest. And of course, you make piss poor decisions. When
Yeah.
you have the weight of the world against you, and you're trying to do the best you can to be a law-abiding citizen, and trying
So
to do
you
the best.
decided that it seemed right to go back and get your money from him.
Absolutely. So how I end up catching the first one, because I got a couple of cases. The first one's because I broke into my godfather's house, which I knew he had a gun, because my mind was gone at this point, and I wanted to take this dude out, just to be completely honest. And with all of what was happening, I was like, I had enough. Every man has a breaking point, and it just wasn't written in the stars to go down the way that I intended in my head.
So you went into your godfather's house because you wanted to get a gun, because you wanted to take care of this man who had taken both your money and your fiance. Mm-hmm. And was the gun there when you went there? Did you get it?
Yes. So I got it.
So you got the gun, and then you went where?
So what ended up happening, I ended up catching, he reported it, of course, rightfully so. He didn't know it was me. And then when he found out it was me, he dropped the case, the state picked it up. But how I caught the additional ones, because the pastor, guy that married my ex-fiance, this dude has had a couple of his cousins at the time while I was at work to threaten my mom. So it gets really, really intense. It's a lot of layers to it, but the long and short of it is that I had enough, and I was going to take care of it the best way that I thought was that I should handle it at that moment. So at the end of the day, I end up, breaking into this guy's house because the intent, I was going to get this dude, but he wasn't there. So I end up catching a robbery for that, even though, like I said, I didn't necessarily take anything out of it. I just did a lot of destruction. And then I went to the business. Now I'm thinking about the money. So I'm like, okay, well, since this dude can't be found, let me see what I could, get back from the $10,000+ that was taken out of the account. It just so happened to work out as to where I had the gun with me, but thankfully I end up something just told me to put the gun back in the car. I put the gun back in the car, and I started to go back into the business, and I triggered a silent alarm. And I told you I was a manager at McDonald's for a while, and I worked a lot of odd jobs. And it just so happened my arresting officers was the same officers that I would give a coffee and a, like a Egg McMuffin to every morning for the last.
So they knew who you were.
Yeah, so they knew who I was. They didn't know who I was right away until I turned around. Right. And everyone knows me as Nero. Those that been around a while, they know me as Nero. And they couldn't believe that they was drawing guns on me. And I couldn't believe it either. But, my mind was completely gone. But at the end of the day, they gave me plenty of opportunities to surrender, and I didn't do it. Larry, I was so far gone. I begged them to take me out.
Sure.
I begged them. And it just shows, again, those that believe in God, I definitely believe that God was at play in this, because I believe if I had to get any other officers, the way I taunted them, I would have legitimately been 6 feet under. I think I defied them probably like 4 or 5 times. I was doing cartwheels off of my car. I was cracking up laughing. My head was pounding. It was a moment in life where it just would not stop for me.
Yep.
And something just had me.
So you get arrested eventually. You head to jail. It's sentenced to 8 years. Is that right?
8 years.
But you don't do 8 years, even though you're supposed to do at least 4 in Illinois. Is that right?
Yes. If for nonviolent crimes, you're supposed to.
But you don't do 4. Why not?
Because 2 years later, Friday the 13th, I'll never forget it because it plays in my head just like yesterday. Friday the 13th, 2001, I had just bought a color TV and prepared to do the last 2 years. Again, if I was there, I might as well have been a little comfortable. And I had just got the TV. And what ended up happening is that the guards woke me up that morning and told me to pack my stuff. And because these two particular correctional officers were jokesters, I just stood at them for a while. I'm like, okay, it's 3 o'clock in the morning and y'all playing these games. Don't nobody want to hear. And so my cellmate at the time literally kicked my bunk, knocked me out the bunk, and told me, said, Nero, if you don't want to go, I'll go on your place. So with a lot of, hesitancy, I'm like, okay, not understanding. The only thing I did was took the letters that people were writing me with me, and I gave everything else to him. And even though I was in disbelief that it was happening, because I still thought that they were pranking me. And by the time I got to the last metal detector, I said something that will remind me of this event, to never allow this or allow someone to get the best of me ever again. I took my ID. I stole my prison ID just to always serve as a reminder as to where I'd been and to never forget. And I asked the lady who was the guard of the last metal detector. I said, just to make sure, because we always got to get a confirmation. I asked her, was this the last checkpoint? Is there anything else I got to do before I'm deemed free or whatever? She said, no, that's it. I said, no, like, I'm not even joking, like, for real, like, this is the last thing. She said, yeah. So she started laughing. I said, why are they letting me go? And she said, that's an easy one. She said, because we were overcrowded by one, and the board decided to let you go. And wow. I kept it moving.
Overcrowded by one, and you were that one.
Now, the thing that I found the most comical, and not really in a laughing fashion, is that I was in Joliet that was really overcrowded, and it was like 3 to 4 people in one cell, and I knew we was overcrowded. Then they moved me to another facility. So that, I believe it was something, a greater power at play. And I don't believe just naturally that it was just because they were overcrowded by one, because they could have easily moved me over to another facility or the facility that I just came from.
That's an amazing story. So you get out now, but when you get out, it's not easy, right? I mean, it's not easy when you get out. So now you get out, and what happens when you actually, now you're out all of a sudden, no support structure immediately, right? You got to figure out what to do. What happens then?
So that in itself is interesting, because I end up running into a guy. His name is Jesse. I'll keep his last name out, and I'm sure he can confirm this story. But at the end of the day, I had went to a temp agency, and I had a choice. And see, I had a lot of hair too. I could have changed they wanted me to work 12 hours to work with asbestos. So I had to cut my hair, wear a hairnet and this big suit, and cut my beard and whole 9 yards. Now I have 2 skin, issues, rosacea, eczema. So I'm like, I'm not too sure about that, but I was willing to do it because I needed something, which was definitely better than working for $1 a day, and, so of course I was going to do it. But then my mom, she had to go to this particular retail store where she, had some furniture at. And this guy named Jesse was at the door, and he's like, you look like a manager or some type of leader or something like that. Now, mind you, I'm 21 years old at the time, and I literally just got out. It hasn't even been a week, I think. And he was like, hey, quiet as kept, I'm getting promoted to a store manager. This random dude just started talking to me about this, and I'm trying to, again, I'm just getting out. So I'm like, what this dude up to? But I'm always, a little optimistic about different things, So he was like, if you want, he said, I think I can help you get a job. He said, because I'm looking for good people. So I never told him, where I've been or anything like that. So I end up going to the interview and didn't know what to expect, but I just knew it was a job. It was better than one. It was only one shift for 12 hours. So I think it was like $35 or $40 or something like that. So I was willing to take the risk. It was the same day that I was supposed to have did this job. So I opted not to do that job and to go interview. And I've never been late to anything a day in my life. So I end up showing up suited and booted. I'm there an hour early. And the interview started at 10 o'clock. And the guy name was Jay that I was supposed to interview with. And so I was the first one there, but I was the last one to leave. Now, they had so many people interviewing, and I never interviewed. I'm there, they put in one person after the other. and I'm hungry. I don't have the money in my pocket. I got, so a lot of stuff going on, but, I'm
Yep.
believing that something may transpire out of this. Not sure what, but I'm optimistic like that. But
so you had some blind faith, basically. You had a little bit of blind faith in you. You're like, I know something's going to work out. You had some blind faith.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's something about resilience, because I feel like if you put your best foot forward at some point, something's going to open up for you. And I wasn't exactly sure.
I always say that, right? I always tell people, they say all the time, Larry, you can't win them all. And I say, it's not you can't win them all, it's you can't lose them all. Eventually you're going to win, right? If you just keep going, eventually you're going to win, right? So I agree. Let me grab a super chat if I could. She's Cute Boutique says, oh, wow, I can't believe this happened. Thank you for the $1.99 super chat. I appreciate that. And she also goes on to say, transparency is why you have my vote. So you have at least one vote. You got at least one.
Just only about 80 million more to go.
That's it. 80 more. Yeah, we're on our way. We're on our way. I appreciate it.
Start with one
thank you for the
person,
super
right?
chat. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So at this point, you then get the job, I assume, right?
Well, let me finish how that actually worked. So like I said, he interviewed person after person after person. And at the end of the day, now it's 6 o'clock and they're getting ready to close the store. And the guy's looking at me like, I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on. Just another, I'm sweating bullets. It's hot. And again, I came in a full suit. It was during the summertime, and the guy came out, rolls up his sleeves, and he says, I'm glad that's over, because I think he might have interviewed about 20 people. And Jesse, he's like, man, I'm glad that's over. And he says, he said, hey, who is this guy? And Jesse's like, well, this is the guy I was telling you about. And he was like, I didn't interview him. He's like, no, you didn't. He said, He said, do you like him? He said, yeah. He said, you want to hire him? He said, yeah. He said, well, you start first thing Monday morning.
Wow.
So that's how that went. At the end of the day.
I like that. That's good. That's good. Look, let me just for 1 second do a little bit of admin for my people who are watching. If you're watching this show right now and you like what you're hearing, do me a favor, click that like button. It's important you click the like button. We got to get past our enemy, Mr. Go Rhythm. Our Go Rhythm is always trying to shut me down. So we got to get past him. So let's click that like button to the best of our ability. Please do that. If you are watching this on Twitter right now, retweet this. If you retweet it, people see it. More people see it. Please retweet if you can. If you want to get your chat to the front, as some of you have seen happen already, please just, if you're watching on YouTube, on Larry's YouTube, you can over super chat it. It's great. If you want to support the show in general, head over to patreon.com/Sharpway. Throw $10 a month over there. It's awesome. Keeps me going here. That's awesome. If you like what Mr. Nero's saying, if you think Andre's got it going on, awesome. Head over to his website, Nero4America.com. If you want to support a third party independent candidate, you can. Please go there. But remember, his maximum, don't get him in trouble, is $3,300. I know Joe wants to write a big old check so he can get the movie rights from you. That's okay, but that's a different deal, right? Deal with him separately on that one. For this one, that's only $3,300. It's the best you can give to him. So if you want to support him, please do so. He's out here, trying to make a difference. I really do appreciate it. Let me grab a couple comments if I could too, if you don't mind, Andre. I'm sorry. I just want to keep the audience happy while we're going through this. Thomas says, voting third party is the only non-violent way to change our government. I can't agree. I mean, Andre, you got to be involved with that one, right?
Absolutely. It's time for change anyway. Like I said, the American community is tired. I know I'm tired, and that's the principal reason as to why I've thrown my name in the hat. I know we got thousands upon thousands that's registered, but it's like Highlander. Only one can win, and I will be there.
Yes. Sam says, I'm sorry, wrong one. I'm sorry. Joe says, what's his plan for winning, getting on a debate stage? Do you have a plan to do those two things? Do you think you're going to get in the debate stage? How are you going to make that happen, or is it possible?
Well, Joe, I do appreciate the question, and I'll tell you, I am what's classified as a master strategist. Although I do guide everything I do by faith, we still have to have a plan, and we do have a plan. And the only thing I can tell you at this current moment in time is just to watch your YouTube, your TV, your social media, and things like that, because we do have a plan. You're not going to see too much right now. Probably within the next 30 to 45 days. You won't be able to avoid it because, like I said, we do have an actionable plan in place that we're getting ready to execute momentarily. But I can tell you this, we will have to have a serious omnipresence, and we have to pretty much be everywhere at the same time, because I do understand that running a third party, they will try to block media attention as much as possible.
Yes.
They will also try to block me from getting on a debate stage. I don't have a problem debating anybody. Like I said, there's nothing that they can do to me except for lose. So when it's all said and done, it is strategy, so if they don't let you through the front door, you got to go through the back.
There we go. Sam says, great conversation. So you got somebody who's liking that. Also, Candy says, God works in mysterious ways. Got my vote. She means got. She corrected. Got my vote. So you got 2 votes. That's 2 out of 80 million. We're on our way. That's all.
Thank you, Candy.
Yes.
I appreciate you.
Absolutely. So let me now move forward more if I could. After you get out and you start getting yourself back in action, you stop a robbery and get an award. Please tell me that what I love about this is you went to prison because of a robbery, and now you stop a robbery and get an award. Please tell that story.
Well, the interesting part about that, I guess, life is funny, right? It has a way of, telling jokes every single day of your life. When the situation happened itself, it wasn't, I wanted to be clear. I never go into a situation and wanted to be the hero, but ironically enough, it does around with my last name. No pun intended. But at the end of the day, this guy comes in, and it just so happened to be at an Arby's. I don't eat Arby's. My girlfriend at the time, we were both ripping and running, working, our fingers to the bone. And we was like, hey, we need something quick. I was shaking because I haven't eaten nothing in a while. She was shaking. She hasn't eaten nothing in a while. And the first place we saw was the Arby's. Like, okay, let's go there. It was raining, and we wanted to get something quick because neither one of us wanted to pass out. And I say, you know what? Let's not eat in the car. Let's go inside and kind of enjoy it as much as we possibly can. And the lady behind the counter, she was an older Black lady, had this very Memphis down south feel. Hey, baby, how you doing? And sometimes you run into people that they don't know strangers, right? And the way that she was, it was just like she knew you forever. So of course it was great to engage with her because she was very pleasant and pleasurable. So the telltale sign as to how I knew something was wrong, right after we sat down, is because her character shifted immediately when this guy walked in. And I'm from Chicago, so I've pretty much seen some of everything. And I don't have any sisters, but I do have, they call us twins because she's like my sister if I've ever had one. We're exactly the same. My spidey senses start tingling. We were both from the same area in Chicago. So when trouble was brewing, we got a good idea of what's going on and where it's coming from. And I knew this guy was up to something. I just didn't know what. But when her whole demeanor shifted, I knew that the older lady was in trouble. Although I could not see the gun, I knew he had one pulled on her, just the way that she became mute at that point. And the distraction was, I knew it was nothing but women in the store. And, my mom raised us to be men. I got 2 brothers. She raised us to be men. Like if it came down to it, it's going to be my blood spilled versus, watching, woman, what we're doing, what men's supposed to do. We're supposed to protect our women. And a young light-skinned, woman came out of the drive-through, and she saw she get angry and she's yelling. But that was my point of entry because I used to wrestle and play football. And before I knew it, I took 2 steps and I basically chicken winged this dude. The gun flew in the air, over the counter. And I think I torn like a ligament underneath his armpit. And when the police came, they, had some difficulty handcuffing him because his arm, he couldn't put his arms behind his back. So come to find out, this guy was the Buckhead Bandit. He had just robbed 36 locations in 30 days. And his MO, you spoke earlier about people loving what they do in regards to like robberies, things like that. This was definitely, that case. And he was so suave with it. He made no noise. He, handed notes, act like he's on the phone, things like that. And so like I said, that's how I ended up winning the NAACP Image Award for hometown champion. And I'll end up winning or getting free Arby's for life at that location.
I like that. You got to head over to that Arby's, get some more food. I like it. It's good.
Yeah.
I love that. But even with that, I mean, you eventually move from that to a position to where now you're not hustling in the same way. I mean, I know you use the phrase silent hustler to describe people around you that you respect, your mother, people around who you respect.
Right.
But you've kind of become that yourself, right? In a certain way, you've been able to make money in marketing, make money in different ways. But you started out making money, you know, being a bouncer, being a DJ, stuff like that. Tell me about that switch. When did that turn? Or how did that turn? Was it a mentor in your life? Was it a significant emotional event? Was there somebody there who showed you something? How'd you make that turn?
Well, in regards to business, I just watched a lot of people and have virtually gathered mentors over the course of some time. But, you know, as you know, that I technically did not have a father figure in my life. My birth father was not one that I could model after. Right. But ironically enough, one of the correctional officers in one of the facilities that I was in ended up becoming my real life father. He ended up becoming my role model. He became the one that showed me what it is to be a man, to be a servant leader, to be a protector, to be a provider, things like that. I've always had entrepreneurial aspirations in leadership, you know, details throughout my life. Because the stain of an ex lasts for a long time. It was only a few years ago that I was able to remove that stain off of my actual record. And I had to be innovative in how I moved, even with business, because that stain has followed for quite some time. It doesn't give you the opportunity to technically be as successful as you want to be, even though you're not too limited, but you have to be very strategic on how you move, because you know what you're up against, but that does not knock you out of the box.
Yes. So as you start, you get a mentor, which I want to go to that piece if I could. You talk about something that so few people do. And that is the idea that there are men in this country who are actually stepping into the gap, as you say, who are seeing that there is a lack or dearth of very often the biological father in the lives of many men and women. But there are young boys and girls, I should say, young men and young women, maybe is a better way. And then they step in to help out. And me being adopted, my father was my adopted father. And that's the man who taught me how to be the man that I am today, right? And he died when I was young. I was 12 when he passed. But then I ran off to the Marine Corps to find more positive male role models to try to make that happen again, right? I was always searching for them too. But you bring that up and no one else does. And you also make it almost a priority. You think we should be shining a light on these men that are stepping into that gap. Is that right?
Absolutely. It is my firm belief that the men that are stepping up and filling in those gaps are not getting enough credit. You always hear about the downside of the lack of fathership, or men being in the actively in the lives of their birth children or biological children, but you don't hear enough of hoorah, you know, so to speak, to those that are standing, you know, in the gap. There are a lot of men that I know personally that I can literally call by name on both hands that has stood in the gap and have assisted in one way, shape, form, or fashion and advocated for children that doesn't technically legally belong to them, and allow them an opportunity to be more successful than they probably would have been on their own. And I think it's vitally important. And I had the rare opportunity to speak in front of over 600 fathers, whether they were biological fathers or adopted fathers, and people, and it was so heartbreaking. But of course, it was a joyous moment because it was something that you don't see in the news. You don't see it on TV as often, but to be in the presence in front of 600 plus fathers that have stood in the gap for these children that it is either their biological or by proxy their children, and have assumed the role of that father figure to be able to show them something or give them advice and tools and tricks of life to just show them different ways to make it it was
Right.
vital. And if we can have more people to shed more light on that instead of having the, the argument of what's not there, I have a tendency in a very strong belief is that you may have a lot of things taken away from you, but I believe in using what you have left, and that's more than enough.
Absolutely. It's funny. Unique Realty says, absolutely you do. It's always negative that spoke more often. I agree. It's easier to tear something down than to build somebody up, right? It's so much easier to just yell and be angry at somebody versus saying, oh, there's someone who's, trying to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Let me add on top of that. I feel like the church has always been a part of your life. And you said yourself, if I remember you right, you said you have a dumb faith in God. Did I quote you right?
Yes.
Right. That you feel that way, so that the church has been wonderful to you as support structure and not. It's been both. It's been hypocritical towards you. It's been a mix, but it's always been in your life. Tell me about that.
So I'll try to make this as simple as possible because, like I said, if we get too deep in the woods, the message in itself can get very, very convoluted. So I'll try to make a very distinct difference between the two. Yes, the church have failed me. Christians have not, or people that are walking or trying their best to walk in the likeness of Christ. I do profess Christianity. It doesn't paint a picture of perfection. As you see, I'm laying my entire life before the American public, but at the end of the day, it's how you treat people that makes a big difference, because sometimes they let the religion of Christianity versus the lifestyle of Christianity get in the way. And yes, the church in itself have failed me, unquote, but Christians have not, because the ones that do believe and have a heart for people have been the ones that have made me who I am today. So that may be far and few between, but at the end of the day, you do have people that not only love God, but love people as equal as the same, versus just giving lip service, saying that they love God and secretly trying to cause the demise of their brother or their sister.
So that's a good point. I want to step in, if I could, for you who are listening, who are watching, whether you're listening on the podcast or watching it live, whatever you're doing. If you like what you're hearing, if you enjoy this show and what Andre's saying, please click that like button. I know I bugged you before. I got to bug you again. I got to keep doing it because Mr. Go Rhythm, is always on me. So I got to get around him. Got to get around the man. So please click that like button. It does matter. Please do it. I know I bug you, but it matters. If you're on Twitter right now, please retweet this. Please stop looking at these two very good looking men for 2 seconds and just click that retweet button. It does matter. We'll still be here when you're done. Click it. We'll still be here. It's all good. Do it if you can. It does matter. If you want to get your chat to the front, super chat me on Larry Sharp YouTube if you want to. Or if you want to support Mr. Andre Nero, if you like what he's saying, you want to support him, head on over to NeroForAmerica.com. Check out what he's doing. His stuff's all there. If you like what you're hearing, you can support him. Donate if you like. It's up there, upper right-hand corner. Click donate if you like. If you want to follow him on his social media, that's all there too. Whatever you feel, please support him if you feel it's right. Go ahead and do that. Third parties are important. Independents are important. Support them as you see fit. But please, Joe, don't give him more than $3,300. It's too much. You want to make that movie deal, call him later. We'll deal with you then, but not now. Call him later on now, and it's all good. So I want to move on, if I could, to now your campaign. We talked a lot about you, which is great. I also talk about the campaign too. Your slogan is something I think resonates with me when I first heard it. I got what you were saying. It's repair, restore, recover. And the reason why I liked it is because it presents some kind of hope, right? And I think if you look left or right, the right had MAGA, Make America Great Again, that was hope. And the left had Obama, hope and change. Again, literally hope. There was hope in both messages. If you lean left, you had Obama's hope and change. If you lean right, you had Trump's Make America Great Again. Yours is hope too. Tell me about that slogan.
Well, I'll tell you how it came about. Repair, restore, recover is literally the epitome of my life, and the way that I was able to overcome in my personal life and the lives that I've been able to change. I do believe that, and plus the team that I have that supports me leads me to believe that if we can do it by the thousands, we can do it by the millions. And if I can change my life from the way that it is, that it was, and to be able to see me excel in the midst of adversity and storms and trials and things of that nature that were designed to literally destroy you. If we look at the state of America right now, we are in probably our most divisive position ever in the history of this country. Now, I know we had slavery and all these other different things or whatever. We can have that debate and argument another day. But if we look at it from an aerial view and look at it in a very, very broad scope, we can see how divided we are. We need a leader that has the ability to unite everybody from all sides versus just looking at it from one lens. It's not about Democratic Party. It's not about the Republican Party. It's not about Libertarian or Green Party or the other parties. But if we find a way to strategically unite everybody and have the best parts of all of them and get rid of the nonsense from the parties that is causing the additional divide, then we can actually legitimately be what we call the United States of America, because we have yet to become united because we're always fighting against one another.
It's a valid point. Julian says we need a strong leader for this country. I think that's true. Absolutely. B. Shees, I think it's Shees, and I hope I'm saying it right. He says third parties are the most important. This is a common thing. I mean, Andre, you've got to be hearing this as you go around. People, if you go back, say, 10 years, 20 years ago, I think most people were angry at third parties more than anything else. It was rare you found somebody who was actually supportive. I mean, some were, but very rare. But today I feel they're more supportive. Do you feel that?
Absolutely. If we look at the trajectory of the country, it's time now for a third party option to legitimately take over the reins of the American public, because we need someone who understands what it is. And if no one else understands where we are, I understand it, because my life says that I was not born with a silver spoon in my life, in my mouth. I was not born with a two-parent household. I was not born with all these different things, but somehow I've been able to overcome these obstacles to say that I can't. And now I can show the people, based on my own life, of what we can do. And not only that, what we can do collectively versus is trying to have all of this individuality and standalone things like that. If a person believes that they can make it on their own, they are foolish. There's nothing that I have done in life, of even having strong faith. There's some things that I've been able to accomplish by myself, but the majority of things I've been able to accomplish together. And I heard this quote, and you've probably heard it too. They said, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, take a team. And I have a team that is able to successfully catapult this thing to the next dimension, and we constantly add into the fold. Now, there is nothing that we do that has not had its adversity. Adversities come, but the ability to overcome the adversities shows your level of tenacity, shows your level of leadership.
Yes.
My team will tell you, we have issues, but I don't run from problems. We don't run for problems. Things get thick at times, but at the end of the day, when the smoke clears and we stand in the middle of the street, we're standing united, we're standing firm, we're standing strong, because of the level of leadership that the way it started is the way it's going to finish. So at the end of the day, if we can do it by the thousands, we can do it by the millions. So no matter what, we have the ability at birth to be able to weather the storm. Sometimes they don't feel like it. Sometimes they don't look like it. But if you know who you are and whose you are, it makes a big difference on whether you win or lose.
Patty says, unity, yes. And then she goes on, someone likes your message. Then she goes on to say, using obstacles as stepping stones, not stumbling blocks. Love that message. Okay, you got some fans, Andre. It's good. I like it. Sam asks you a question, though. Sam says, what would you say is the most important message teenagers need to hear?
Okay, Sam, I will ask you before I answer that, because I have two different answers, but I do need to get some clarity. What age group are you speaking of?
Oh, that is a great question, Sam. What age? So we'll hold on. Sam will talk what he's talking about. Let me move on to what Joe goes on. Joe's all over. He keeps commenting. Joe's a fan. He says, stand in the gap. Good name for that kind of organization. Well, there we go. Maybe we have some kind of organization. I like that.
Write that down.
There we go.
You might
Yes.
have to have some type of
Unique.
partnership.
Thank you for the $1.99. I appreciate the super chat. She says, "You're relatable. That's what we need." Well, look, I got to be forward, Andre. One of the reasons why I was really thinking about what you were thinking, what bringing you on, was because your story is not. Your story isn't, I went to Harvard and I'm the smartest guy in the room, and that's why I should rule you all with an iron fist. That's not your story at all. So I thought your story was very relatable. I agree with Unique Realty completely. I think it is very relatable. So Sam, by the way, does come up. He says that he's thinking ages 12 to 16.
Okay.
That's what he's thinking.
So my answer to you, Sam, and I appreciate the question and also bringing clarity to it. My answer would be to that age group is to refortify them for them to understand that their voice matters at any age. A lot of times I am discovering over the course of a short period of time that youth within that age bracket are being silenced. They're saying that they don't understand today's problems. They don't understand the world as we know it, and they don't have any input or say. But I would definitely tell them that their voice matters, and they need to know that the very second that they have an opportunity to register to vote, they should vote, because every vote matters.
Here we go. Okay. So you have a large list of things that are important to you. You bring up ending homelessness and hunger, ending student debt. You also will talk about small business ownership, which again, you almost never hear in our community. That one hit me immediately. Green energy, women's rights, domestic terrorism, public safety. You have a bunch of things. I'd like you to talk about what top 2 or 3 matter to you, and let me season a little bit. I like the entrepreneur part. That's the small business ownership is big in my world. And the reason why I say that, just so that everyone knows why, is I remember growing up in my community that as I got older in my community, less and less businesses were owned by people who looked like me. And I never forget, after the riots, after George Floyd was killed, and there was a very popular video that went viral, and a reporter goes out to a woman and goes, "Why are you guys burning down your own neighborhoods?" or something like that, right? And the woman, I'm paraphrasing, she yelled something like, "We don't own any of this. We don't own any of this." I thought to myself, she's actually right. Not that you should be burning stuff down. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying her point is a valid point. A lot of that stuff isn't owned by the local people. It's owned by franchisees who are a state away or cities away, or whatever the case may be. So I'm sorry, I went long because that part affects me. I really care about that one. But just give me your top 1, 2, or 3 issues that you'd want to kind of highlight.
Well, that's definitely up there. I do believe in small business ownership. Again, I struggled when I first started in business. Again, I didn't really have any mentorship. I didn't have funding. I had to get it out the mud, as they say. And I've had a massive amount of failure and very few successes, but the success in itself outweighed the failure. Because again, as they say, if at first you don't succeed, try and try again. But I don't believe that you should be able to, or you should have to try alone per se. And when I do become president, I am going to enact a national Mind Your Business Day. And however you look at it, of course, you see the direction that I'm traveling on that.
Absolutely.
Remember, folks, you heard it here first. So at the end of the day, we'll have a focus on small business ownership and also being able to attain the funding you need in order to successfully thrive. Because we know that thousands upon thousands of businesses every single year start, and thousands upon thousands of small businesses fail because they don't have enough support. And the SBA alone is not enough in order to allow them to be able to take root and successfully thrive the way that they should. Because again, within the first 3 to 5 years, they will fail anyway if they don't have the proper support. So that's one, definitely. Ending homelessness and ending homelessness is definitely in the top. And that includes dealing with the homeless veterans. I am not appreciative of how our country have a great expectancy for us to have our young men and women to fight for this country. and give them the respect abroad and all the weapons and artillery and everything that they need to successfully take out a person on the behalf of the country. But then when they return home and they're treated like gum up under the shoe. I don't care for it one single bit. And the ones that are they're defenders of our country, they're the ones that allow us to continue the freedoms and liberties that we have, and to come back home and to be treated the way that they are. I think we have more systematic breakage. Again,
does that mean you feel like there's repair of, say, the VA, or do you think there's a different organization, or is this more local community? Where do you think we should be shifting in that regard at a federal level?
I do recall some investigations that they've had with the VA over the course of some time, that they realized that they were not allocating the funds the way that they were supposed to be allocated to be able to take care of the returning vets, especially the ones that have become disabled, as a disabled as a result of their tenure in the military, whether short term or long term. That was the result of their military duty. But at the end of the day, again, we should treat them with the same level of dignity and respect and values that we treated them when they did their oath in regards to the country. And I'll tell you this quick story. I was almost in an accident, and a young person died as a result of the accident. The truck that was coming, if I didn't speed up, again, spidey senses kicked in. I kind of put the pedal to the metal and didn't know that it was a truck getting ready to run the red light. And it just so happened to hit the car behind me. And that person, they ended up, flying through the glass of the truck. Wow. And so the guy's hair was stuck, and just another. But I was just on the phone with one of my members from the campaign team. And I was saying, hey, I was looking to the left of me. And I said, this is what I'm talking about. I'm literally looking at two homeless people that is under the bridge. They look like they're having a good time, but I can also tell that they're drunk. And of course, you have to drink and do different things or whatever to escape the realities. That's how they do drugs and everything else. And little did I know, as the accident happened, these two individuals quickly sobered up and sprung into action. And they saved this young man's life. They dug him out of the truck, and they did mouth-to-mouth resuscitation.
They were veterans.
They were veterans.
Of course.
And had a talk with them. I actually put it on one of my social media channels. And because I was just in disbelief the way that they were being treated. And I was like, hey, like, you got military training? Say, yeah, I'm one of the best, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Him and his buddy, they were in the same platoon together. And I was like, well, why are you homeless? And so, well, we've been waiting on the VA for the last 3 years or so. But hey, we have to live. We have to get on how we live. And that bothered me. It bothered me so much. Now, I've never done military, and thank you, Larry, for your service. My second in command of one of my companies, she's a retired female Marine, and she is amazing. I can't even express the level of service that she offers. I get more than what I originally bargained from. You guys are wired differently. I always wanted to be a Marine, but because I went to prison, that option was taken away from me. But it doesn't make me respect the military and servicemen any less. So at the end of the day, you guys are hardwired to serve. And with that being said, it is my responsibility to be able to serve those who serve.
Okay, so you talked about veterans issues, homelessness, small business ownership. Do you want to grab one more before we wrap this up? One more thing you want to talk about?
Definitely. Well, I guess we got two, but I'll talk about one.
Two.
Education is
do two if you want.
Education is vitally important, because I do think that we need a fair opportunity for our children that is up and coming to be as successful as possible. I'm not saying that you have to have a Harvard education, but you do have to have an education period in order to have some understanding of how to move forward in life. Now, I do understand they don't teach you everything you need, in school. So if you grab the basic principles, we'll be A-okay. So we do need to have an uprising for that. And the other thing I would love to introduce, I do know we have the LGBTQ community, and there's a lot of different things that go on with them. I believe that we should separate the communities, not because of the differences of, I guess you say, sex or orientation and things like that, or whatever. Now, we are living in a different era. But I think one of the things that we need to do, each group of people have their own special abilities.
So
And I
let
think
me touch both to become clear.
Mhm.
I'm going to hold education for a second so I can clear this one up first.
Okay.
You're saying that you want to separate the L and the G and the B and the T and the Q. Is that what you mean when you say separate?
Well, not necessarily. I know it. Again, I don't want to get too deep in the woods on it. But we are constructing a plan that would allow them to operate successfully in their own element. Is what I'm saying.
Oh, I got it. Okay, so you don't have the
Mhm.
details of your plan yet, but the concept is to treat them as individuals, not as a group. That's what you're saying.
Yes and no.
Okay.
So to better to clear the air on that one, how
Mhm.
that will work is that okay, so you know that they're one of the fights is having to basically play in the same sports and things like
Yeah.
that, or play with the women, or play with the guys, whatever.
It's a
It's
big
another.
fight right now. It's biological women playing
Hmm.
with trans women in the same league. That is a massive fight right now. Is that what you're
Hmm.
talking about? That fight?
Yes, I
Got it. Okay.
think one of the wisest things to do, because we do want to be inclusive to a great degree, but I think we have to be very strategic and smart as to how we make that inclusion happen. So we do have a lot of DEI, situations, and we want to be diverse. We want to be, have the equity. We want to have the inclusion, but strategy will have us to bring to the attention. Maybe we should, instead of putting it that way, maybe we should have their own division as to where. Well, let's put it this way: almost kind of like how they have the Special Olympics, because
Mhm.
it's almost literally impossible for those that are physically handicapped to play a non-handicap game, right?
Mhm.
So at the end of the day, if the issue is we have uh, women that don't want transgendered women to play because of the enhancements or whatever else, or transgendered men to play it in the male sports, maybe we should create its own division as to where they will feel
So there
comfortable
would
in that
be
element.
the NBA, the WNBA, and the
Yes.
TNBA.
And exactly, they can create their own specialty league or uh, subsidiary in addition to that. And it doesn't necessarily have to be inclusive on that level, but for them to feel the belonging that they're wanting, and they're, as they're having issues uh, and things like that, uh, they can still be a part. Maybe I think it's best to just itemize it so they can have their own thing, so they don't have to worry about dealing with this rule or that rule. You can create, this is America. This is a place where you can literally create your own blueprint in life, and everybody has one. So you don't, so with me, as you mentioned, my path in my life is not the same way of every other candidate. And,
Sure.
I don't have the same road. I didn't go the same path. So I have to be strategic and work in my lane. I know what works for me, and independent works the best. I can work with
Got it.
anybody as long as they, work with me. So at the end of the
So I
day,
see. So your point is with the LGBT community is you're saying, if I get it right, that you want to make it to where there is a separate place, almost like a safe space for the LGBT
exactly.
community to function when it comes to sports.
And they absolutely, and they
Got
need
it.
a
Okay.
leader that can be able to help them navigate through those woods to be able to do what they need to do to successfully operate in their capacity. That's it. That's all.
Okay. So let me go back to the education piece you brought up.
Hmm.
Were you talking education? Was that K through 12 you were talking education? Was that college? Was that a combo? When you were speaking about education earlier, what was your focus on? Was it K through 12, early education, college?
I think it
What was your
definitely.
focus?
I think it definitely. My focus will be from the very beginning, because young
Early
minds are the
education.
most formidable.
Okay.
If we start from the very beginning, you have the right educators in place to be able to educate, then we will absolutely legitimately have a chance to succeed as a country. And we need to have this in every part of the country. So we have the right leaders, and we need to pay them appropriately too, because we're asking a lot from our educators. to be able to sacrifice a lot of their materials, a lot of their own dollars in order to be able to educate our children as a collective and to offer them so little. If we up their pay and we concentrate more on giving them the right education to be able to be successful, then again, our future can look a lot brighter.
Excellent. Okay, good. Andre, did I miss anything in our conversation? Is something else that you might want to bring up or talk about before we wrap this up?
No, I think you pretty much covered it. I will tell everybody to stay tuned because we do have an excellent strategy that we will execute not too many days from now.
I love it. Guys, if you like what you're hearing, do me a favor, click that like button. It does matter. Even if it's at the end, please click it. Every click does matter. If you can share this on Twitter, please do that. It really does matter. If you like what Andre Nero is saying, head on over to Nero for America. Check out what he's got going on. His stuff's all there. If you want to support him, click donate, support. If you want to volunteer, please go ahead and volunteer whatever you need. You can contact him right there on his website. Check him out if you like. Andre, I want to say thank you so much for giving me a chunk of your evening. Thank you, Larry. I appreciate the opportunity. Absolutely. Everybody watching, thank you so much. I will be talking to someone, believe it or not, from the Prohibition Party tomorrow. There's such a thing. That will be tomorrow. Also, I'll be doing an AMA, Ask Me Anything, this Friday, 7 p.m. tomorrow night, and 7 p.m. Friday night is the AMA. Tomorrow night's the Prohibition Party guy. That's going to be an album. But hey, maybe it'll be awesome. You never know what will happen. Thank you for giving me a couple moments of your time. I appreciate everybody. I will see you all